from DynastyLeagueFootball.com and the DLF family of podcasts. It's me, it's that old SFD roaming the streets of Superflex City. And this is the SuperFlex Super Show. And not only that, but we are live on YouTube, live on the DLF feed. It's been way too long since I've done one of these. And actually, it's also on a different night. I'm still calling it SuperFlex Super Friday, though. Hopefully that it's Monday night. It's a Monday night edition. And hopefully it makes the fact that this is only Monday a little bit more palatable. If we call this SuperFlex Super Friday night, Monday night edition. We're going to party like it's Friday night. Not really. I mean, we're just going to talk fantasy football. And I mean, this is meant to be your time, as always. You know, we had a really cool run here the last few weeks on a SuperFlex Super Show of guests talking some strategy. Just had Katie Flower in the last week, I suppose, and they talked Devi with her, talked rookies, trading rookie picks, valuing rookie picks, things like that. Before that, I had Josh Bigby from Fusion Fantasy Football talking about his high ground dynasty strategy for startups. And then before that, I had the great Scott Connor from right here at DLF talking about portfolio dynasty. And we've just had so much strategy, so much strategy talk the last few weeks. And it's been awesome. And I get great feedback on those, but I also every single time there's so many people who jump into my DMs and say, man, like, this is something that I thought of from listening to that episode, or here's a question that I had from that episode. And so I felt like what really needs to happen here is we need a live show where you've got the opportunity to just come in here and talk about whatever it is that's going on, whatever it is that, you've been curious about or you've been thinking about, whatever it is that you're dealing with in your leagues right now. And we can do it all. I mean, obviously, DynastyLeagueFootball.com. It's always, we're always Dynasty focused. SuperFlexDude and the SuperFlex Super Show. So, all things Superflex all the time, but I'm happy to talk redraft. I'm happy to talk one quarterback. I know that not everyone plays Superflex, and I also know that Dynasty leagues this time of year really kind of start to take that redraft type of focus, that redraft type of approach. So, you know what, we're gonna do the exact same thing. We're gonna start to focus a little bit on, start of the season and in-season management, and regardless of the format. So, feel free to bring some redraft thoughts and questions as well. So, yeah, we'll while we wait for people to file in and for some questions to come in. Oh, we already got one. I was gonna say we've got some new ADP. It's coming in the next few days to DynastyLeagueFootball.com. It's gonna be SuperFlex startup ADP for the month of July, and we can talk about that at any point throughout this show. And we'll definitely, I'm sure we're going to get to that. Even just the first three picks are pretty fascinating to me. And honestly, I've got several thoughts about just the entire first round. So plenty to talk about there. But yeah, we'll come back to that. We're gonna get back to that, because right now, let's start talking with you, the live chat. Steven Peterson is here, and he asks, he said, in a 10-team, 2 quarterbacks, start 12, Scott Fishbowl quarterback scoring. So for those who aren't familiar, the big thing with that is, so I think that he brought the scoring back down a little bit on things like turnovers, got rid of sacks, but right now, The big thing is completions, completions and incompletions. It's a half a point for every completion, negative full point for an incompletion. So basically, the threshold is 33 or 66% completion percentage that you want from your quarterback, and you'll get positive scoring, get a little bit of a bonus as well. So anyways, so that's what Scott Fishbowl quarterback scoring looks like. And Steven is asking, how do I handle my quarterback situation? I have Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson, and Trey Lance with 2 2023 firsts. So I think the big issue, I mean, a lot of risk, right? We're a lot of unknown. We're kind of missing a lot of information. First of all, Watson, what happens there? Is there a I mean, there obviously there's a suspension coming. How big is that suspension going to be? What's that going to look like? And then Trey Lance, to me, is and I don't know about you, Steven, but for me, this is Trey Lance is a little bit part of the issue as well. A lot of people have him kind of pegged for a breakout here in 2022. Finally gets the starting job away from Jimmy Garoppolo. The fact that Jimmy Garoppolo is still on roster is, that's a red flag for us a little bit. But there's also just the fact that we saw very small sample size, admittedly, but we saw a little bit of Trey Lance as a starting quarterback for the 49ers in 2021, and it wasn't pretty. So, there's a lot to be nervous about there. So I'm guessing that's kind of what you're focused on here. And in fact, he had a little bit of a follow-up here. Or just in general, how do I address quarterbacks in this type of league setting? So, that's a very good question as well. So, a big part of it is obviously we're looking for, in that type of scoring, where we're looking for completions, we're looking for high completion percentage. We're really kind of looking for the more efficient, more polished pocket passer types. We saw in the Scott Fishbowl, in the drafts, we saw guys like Matt Ryan getting a big bump, Derek Carr getting a big bump, Kirk Cousins, Tom Brady all of a sudden becomes a first round pick in a lot of those Scott Fishbowl drafts. My man Aaron Rodgers, I mean, he's kind of built for this. I've been cooling on him a little bit just because I feel like he's maybe a little too protective of the football, a little too careful. But in Scott Fishbowl scoring, that's what you want. That's where, you're going to get a lot of points out of him. So we're kind of looking for guys like that. And unfortunately here, Kyler, Deshaun Watson, and Trey Lance, that's built a little bit more for more traditional SuperFlex 2 quarterback type of leagues where, there's more of an emphasis on the guys who run. I mean, I think that you're fine with Kyler. Trey Lance is a little bit of a risk. And when do you get Deshaun Watson? There's never been any problems with Deshaun Watson as a passer. It's just a matter of when do you get him? When does he get on the field? So I think that you're fine with the guys that you have. But I can definitely see the need to, consider, first of all, adding another guy who gives you a little bit of a floor in this type of scoring. And I think that we can go pretty deep as far as that goes. To me, Jared Goff is a great one to target in this type of scoring. He's got weapons everywhere. He's got arguably the best offensive line in the NFL. He's been in the system for a full year now. And he's always been a play it fairly safe, keep it kind of close to the line of scrimmage type of guy. And it's always worked for him. It's not taking a bunch of risks. So, I think that he would be a great target for you if you could kind of balance it out in a couple different ways. He's also fairly cheap. I don't even think you're necessarily going to have to give up one of those 2023 firsts to get him. And if you do, I kind of think that's like max value. And I think that you can probably stack some assets to get there. But the other thing that you could consider doing is, I mean, you could eliminate the risk of Trey Lance and, possibly trade, him plus the wide receiver, running back, or whatever, whatever your position of strength is beyond quarterback, you could kind of package a couple guys, Trey Lance being one of them, and you might be able to get back, multiple of those safer, high completion percentage type of guys, just because the names are not sexy at all. If you could get, Mac Jones and Jared Goff in the same deal, that's a great way to kind of eliminate the risk, give yourself some, a relatively nice high floor at quarterback. So that's that. I think that kind of addresses, just how I approach it in general. I'm kind of looking for that type of quarterback. And then almost regardless of the settings, I mean, one of my favorite moves is to tier down. I've been, I've had so many guests on the show over the course of this offseason talking about, give me two absolute stud quarterbacks. And we know that does create an advantage, but I still believe that there's an opportunity, there's an advantage to be gained as well by streaming quarterbacks within your roster a little bit, especially if you're able to create a stronger lineup around them outside of the quarterback position. And a lot of times an easy way to do that is to start with an elite level guy like a Kyler Murray, tier down at quarterback. You don't even have to take a huge step down, Matthew Stafford, and get back in return. First of all, you didn't really lose much in scoring, and you honestly just raised your floor a little bit. And then you also get back in return and upgrade somewhere else in your lineup. So that's one of my favorite moves to make just in general. But it's also, it could be a pretty sneaky move just to take advantage of the scoring here too. The recovering Ridley truther is here. Yes, sir. Yo, yo, yo. Yo, my friend. Good to see you. If you're a top 3 contender, 12 team SuperFlex PPR 2.25 tight end premium. Holy hell, that's the heaviest tight end premium I've ever seen, by the way. My answer is going to be tight ends. Whatever. Let's see what the rest of the question is. But we're funneling towards tight ends in that scoring. Have Jalen Hurts, Ryan Tannehill, and Carson Wentz as my 3 quarterbacks. Would you trade Hurts for Trevor Lawrence and a 2024 second? Trevor Lawrence is safe, but Hurts gives points now. Wow, that's honestly a tough one, because I think for me, generally speaking, I'm going to say, whatever side comes with the plus sign, that's the side that I want. Those guys are so similar in scoring, floor to ceiling, that it almost doesn't even matter, just whichever comes with something extra. The only problem is a second round pick that's 2 years out that kind of doesn't do a whole lot for me. That's not really enough to get me out of bed, to get me to act. So I kind of think that it might be worth trying to negotiate that a little bit, see if you can get, some more immediate scoring out of that. But otherwise, I'm all for this type of move. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to settle in and be just fine. And I think that I think that, like I said, you're going to get similar scoring with either one of these guys. So just, take the side with the plus sign. So if you're able to get something on top of Trevor Lawrence, I would definitely do it. I would just try and make it a little bit more substantial sweetener. Ja Webb says, my first time playing Superflex, it's best ball. I have Dak Prescott, Ryan Tannehill, Geno Smith, and Tyrod Taylor. 25th round, 10 picks left. How bad is that, or am I okay? I mean, I think that you need a little bit more depth. I mean, we're kind of banking at this point on Geno Smith becoming the starter in Seattle, in order for this to work. So, and this is all predicated on, at least for me, the idea that you want a quarterback and at both the quarterback, obviously, and the super flex position at all times. In best ball, it's a little easier for us to maintain that because, we can just grab a bunch of guys and they'll just give us whoever scores the best. And, they'll also even out our scoring if the quarterback that is supposed to fill our super flex spot ends up having a bad week. So, so there's a little bit of a protection there, a little bit of a fail safe for us. But I still think that you want to make sure you've got at least 3 starting quarterbacks. So I think we're going to wait and see. If Geno Smith is able to, and it's not like that's an unattainable job by any stretch of the imagination. Drew Lock is not, it is not insurmountable. We'll say that. But I mean, part of the problem for you, I think, is just going to be the fact that even if Geno Smith wins this job, it's kind of a 1-year proposition, So I think that you're going to be looking for another quarterback for a while. And man, I'll tell you this. I don't understand the pick of Malik Willis by the Tennessee Titans. That one just didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. It does kind of signal that there might be some movement towards, getting younger, on the offensive side, particularly, obviously it seems like something that they're kind of endeavoring to do. They want to get, they want to start to get younger. I mean, you already know that the recipe of Derrick Henry just slamming into the line, 20 times a game until everybody's sick of tackling him. Those days are dwindling if they're not already over. You've got to start to look for an alternative at running back. They moved on from AJ Brown and, draft Treylon Burks. It seems like they're trying to rebuild this offense and get a little bit younger. Maybe the goal is for Malik Willis to actually do that at some point. I think that if they really felt like Malik Willis was going to be the guy, if they were really going to anoint him, they would have taken him earlier than the 3rd round. So I don't think he's necessarily a threat, but I do think that the writing might be on the wall a little bit for Tannehill. I think you've got some time. I think you've got a runway here. But I think that you're probably going to be looking for some quarterback depth here in the fairly near future, Ja. BJ Lee says, I just finished my first ever rookie draft. How'd I do? 12 team, start 9, 1 quarterback drafted from 103, unfortunately. Tried to trade it. Got Burks, Treylon Burks, George Bell, Romeo Dubes, Daniel Bellinger, and Phillips. So, being stuck at 103 is that's kind of the best you could really do, right? Is just kind of pick your favorite wide receiver. I mean, I've kind of kicked around the idea of just going running back anyways, even if, even even if it starts off Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker at 103, still go ahead and take a running back because we know how important that position is. We know we need to take as many shots as we can, and we know that we need to have plenty of depth because it's such a revolving door in season. But I just have not been able to bring myself to do it anytime I'm at 103. You know, thinking about whether it's James Cook or Rashad White, whoever you have as a running back 3 in this class, I still just can't bring myself to pass up on those wide receivers. So no, I mean, I think you made the best of it. It's a lot of wide receiver depth. And it kind of depends on, what the rest of your roster build kind of looks like, where you're at in the process of building it. Because, if you're in a little bit of a rebuild mode, like if you organically got 103, then it makes sense to kind of load up on some of these wide receivers, see which ones hit. And then, once you've got it kind of set, you've got the guys in your rotation at wide receiver who, you've got young guys who are just going to kind of be set it and forget it type of guys. Then you start to pare it down, but odds are you're not going to get all of these guys to hit. So it makes some sense to take multiple shots, if you're contending and you've already got some pretty good wide receiver depth, those guys are really just kind of taking up space on your roster. But yeah, so it's really kind of roster dependent. I hate to cop out like that, but it's really kind of true. But yeah, I mean, as far as 103, I'm fully on board with the Burks pick. I have my preference at wide receiver, and it's not Treylon Burks, but honestly, like we've talked about this a lot between SuperFlex Super Friday and the SuperFlex Super Show. I mean, we just have nothing to really go off of to say definitively which of these guys is going to hit and which one won't. So you honestly just take your favorite. And if it's Treylon Burks, I mean, you've got just as much of a chance to hit with him as I do with Garrett Wilson or someone else does with Drake London. So I like that pick for sure. Yeah, the rest of it, I think, like I said, kind of roster dependent, but nothing wrong with it inherently. Bellinger is a nice pick, kind of late. That's a nice value pick. Let's see. We've got West Coast Chiefer is here too. Jimmy is still on the 49ers because he decided to have shoulder surgery in March and screwed things up. Kyle Shanahan has publicly said Jimmy will be traded, possibly released. Yeah, it's just strange that it hasn't happened. But I mean, I'm with you. I don't believe that we get to the season with a quarterback controversy in San Francisco. But it is just like I said, it's a little bit of a red flag that he's still there to me. Let's see. Stickman87 asks 10 team SuperFlex start 9 half PPR full tight end premium 6-point passing touchdown. Wow. For a contender, traded Kyler Murray for Kyle Pitts, Tua, and a 23 first, trying to move Tua and the first for a better quarterback. Who can I target? I have Hurts. Jackson is out. So let me start by saying I freaking love that move. Kyler, and you got back Kyle Pitts, Tua, and a 23 first. That's a huge win, and kind of, back what I was saying before about tearing down. Like this is what that looks like. This is what it looks like when you tear down from an elite level quarterback And, we get to use Kyler Murray as the example yet again, because this actually happened. This is a real life scenario. Look at what you got in return. Kyle Pitts is, especially with the tight end premium, is, late first round, early second round type of value in a startup. Tua is a second rounder and a 2023 first. I mean, if we were just putting startup value on that, we're probably talking about like an early third rounder. Those are the type of players that you have to trade right now to get a 23 first. So you basically got 2 seconds and a third startup value for, in return for Kyler. And you didn't lose headcount at quarterback. Still got Tua. Like, that's just such a massive win. I'll be honest. Onto your question from there, I don't think I would necessarily. I don't think that I would package Tua and a first for an upgrade at quarterback necessarily. I would just, take that win, take that windfall that you just got, and enjoy it. Because I just don't think that Kyler Murray is going to outscore Tua by such a large amount every single week that that it should be worth Kyle Pitts and a 23 first. And I don't know that there's a quarterback out there who's going to outscore Tua by, the equivalent of a 2023 first. Like, the value that you're going to get out of that quarterback, that elite quarterback that you're going to trade for, has to outscore Tua by, the player equivalent of that. And it's going to be tough to do. So I don't think that I would, if you're pretty set on doing that, I think that I would probably shoot for, maybe try for Justin Herbert. Honestly, it's that top range. If you hadn't just traded Kyler, I would say that he's probably one of the guys that you consider moving Tua and a first to get. Beyond that, it's Josh Allen, Pat Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson if he had been in play, but you said he's not. Honestly, those are kind of the only guys that I would really do it for. And I think that you should be able to get those guys in return for Tua plus a first. So if you're not able to get that, that's kind of even more reason to not pursue that type of trade, in my opinion. Tim Ford asks, I'm in a Dynasty league and I have Javonte Williams in the second round. And is he worth keeping since the coach from Denver likes to use 2 running backs, or should I drop him? We're in a 12-team league. So it sounds like a keeper league, not necessarily Dynasty. So Dynasty, you would keep your entire roster. And this sounds like a keeper league where you're trying to make the determination if you want to keep Javonte Williams, basically for a second round startup or draft pick, essentially. So either you keep Javonte or you get to make that second round pick. And in a 12-team league that's going to be kind of depleted by keepers, I think that pretty comfortably pushes Javonte Williams up into that second round range. So I think it's value wise, I think it's fine. As far as what is the Broncos backfield going to look like this year? I mean, keep in mind that it took them, Melvin Gordon basically just kind of ended up back there. They weren't excited about bringing him back. They weren't actively trying to re-sign him. He went to Baltimore and tried to get a job there, and it didn't happen. And they ended up getting him back super cheap. He's familiar with Russell Wilson. He's the old veteran, who's going to give you some goal line stuff. I don't think that he has any kind of alpha status on that roster that we would need to worry about as managers of, rosters with Javonte Williams. I really don't. And the other thing about it is and this is kind of the bigger point to me, is all of a sudden this entire team, not just the offense, but the entire team becomes much more run friendly. So just by the fact that you have an actual quarterback, a real NFL quarterback all of a sudden. And so the first thing that it does, that Russell Wilson does, is he extends drives, which means more opportunities across the board. Even if they were still to do a 50-50 split, you're still going to get, both running backs, both Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams are both going to get several more touches per game just for the fact that they're on the field more. The other thing that's going to happen is you're going to get down in the red zone more. There's going to be more opportunities to score touchdowns. You don't have to break a long run in order to do it anymore. Just long sustained drives that end with, a 1-yard plunge into the end zone. That's going to be available to both running backs, at least in theory, way more than it has been. And then the third thing is, this is a very good defense, and it was last year as well, but they were on the field a lot because of the failure to extend drives. The offense going 3 and out all game long. The defense is just constantly on the field, constantly on a short field, constantly trying to defend a short field and just suck and win the entire time. Now you're able to extend drives. You're able to keep the defense off the field a little bit. They're able to rest. They're going to have more opportunities. They're also going to, you're going to be in better situations as far as field position goes. So, this defense is going to be able to limit the opponent's scoring a little bit better and create more of a positive game script for the running game. It's going to be smaller, lower scoring and a little bit more focus on, ball control, clock control. So, I think that there just is a much better opportunity available here. A much better opportunity available to Javonte Williams. Sorry, that's very unprofessional. Phone ringing in the middle of a show. You gotta be kidding me. All right. Ja Webb, one of my 2 10-team, 1 quarterback rookie drafts went Breece Hall, Drake London, Kenneth Walker, Isaiah Spiller. Yeah, that's another guy to consider. And let's see, Wilson, Cook, Pierce, Jameson Williams, Olave at 9, to Ja, and then Treylon Burks at 10. That's kind of crazy that he fell that far. But I mean, you were one of the people who passed on him, so some pretty strong feelings on Treylon Burks, and I think that that's fair too. Like I said, it's going to be so hard to say, and I don't know that we're going to be able to figure it out right away. I mean, I think Garrett Wilson is going to be in an opportunity that he might be able to give us an early, rookie breakout. Treylon Burks could. We know what they want to do on offense, and it's not throw the ball a lot. But I mean, Drake London is going to have a pretty unsettled quarterback situation for a while here. Jameson Williams coming back from an injury. When do we get him on the field? Chris Olave is another one who actually has an opportunity to break out early. Sky Moore, to me, is those are the guys that have an opportunity to be, to kind of reach their potential in year one. But a lot of these guys, Drake London, Treylon Burks, Jameson Williams, a lot of those guys, I don't think that we're going to have nearly enough information on them after one season. a recovering Ridley truther says, do you foresee any of the 2023 quarterbacks being drafted as top 12 quarterbacks in SuperFlex startups this time next year? Running backs seem to be for sure, but not super hyped about the quarterbacks yet. Yeah, I mean, so last year we had obviously a very strong quarterback class led by Trevor Lawrence, and he ended up, for the most part, he had a first round ADP. He was usually around quarterback 11, quarterback 12 in most of our ADP mock drafts and in most startups as well. And we don't have a Trevor Lawrence coming in 2023. It's going to be a good quarterback class led by, Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. And there are a handful of guys. It could be another situation where we've got, 5 quarterbacks going in the first round. Plus, we're going to have probably at least that many jobs available next year. So, so I think that we're going to see some very good quarterbacks coming out, and I think they're going to be drafted high. I just don't think that there's anybody that you say, this is Trevor Lawrence. This is kind of a can't miss type of prospect. These guys also now have to fight off the stigma of Trevor Lawrence. So, I think people are going to be extra cautious anyways. So yeah, I don't think any of them make it into the top 12. That doesn't mean I'm going to shy away from any of them. I think that, I think that it's basically a class full of guys like, the type of prospects that, Justin Fields and Zach Wilson were, or maybe even somewhere in between those guys and Trevor Lawrence. But yeah, none of them are going to come in here with the type of hype and the type of draft pedigree, the type of, the prospect profile that Trevor Lawrence did. And to me, that's kind of what it takes to come in as a top 12 quarterback before you even play it down. Let's see. Pato asks, 10-team Superflex, 2023 first, 2024 first, 2024 second, and Hunt and Tony, Kadarius Toney. I'm assuming that's Kareem Hunt for Jonathan Taylor and John Mechie. And that's it's going to sound kind of crazy. And if you did a Twitter poll on this and tagged me in it, so I don't really comment on Twitter polls unless I disagree with the results of the poll. I have a feeling I would be commenting on this one and making the case for Jonathan Taylor. So the problem here is, because a lot of people are going to look at this and see 2 first-round picks. The problem is one of them's in 2023 and one of them's in 2024. So it's really hard to semantically you call that 2024 first off first. Value-wise, though, it's not quite there. It's not really worth a first-round pick, and it's because we have to wait 2 years before you even know where that pick is going to land, who's going to be available to take with that pick. What's the upside? And the problem is, even John Mechie is going to score how many points in those 2 years while you're waiting. So, I actually wrote an article at DLF about time value. And this is really kind of what we're talking about. The fact that you have to wait 2 years, 2 years for that 2024 first devalues that pick a little bit. It should anyways. Most people don't do the math that way, but they really should. And kind of the same thing for the 2024 second. Those just get bumped down in value a little too much. And for me, Jonathan Taylor is just going to give you so many points over the next 2 years, and you're not going to have an opportunity to replace him. So I'll take Jonathan Taylor. It wouldn't be a popular take, but I would rather have Jonathan Taylor. I would put him at probably about 2023 first round picks. That should be the value for the running back 1 in Dynasty. Keeping in mind too that when we're buying draft picks, we don't want to call that an early draft pick. We certainly don't want to call it 101. If it ended up being 101, awesome. You get Bijan Robinson, to replace Jonathan Taylor, and you probably honestly got the better player. We'll see about situations, but you probably got the better player. But what are the odds that that's going to turn into 101, especially when the team that has that, that the team that pick will come from just got Jonathan Taylor. You know what I mean? So it's there's a lot to this that really kind of needs to devalue those rookie picks, and say that, we're not really getting very close to Jonathan Taylor at that point. I always like to try and come up with a scenario where I would actually do that trade, but in this case, I'll be honest with you. I couldn't do it. I just would rather have Jonathan Taylor for the next, year, 2 years. Zane, my man, love the special Monday edition. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't wait till Friday. Also Fridays got kind of tough for me, but just in general, I was like, man, so no manic and chill tonight. So let's take over this thing and do a Monday edition of Super Friday. In your opinion, what are some of the biggest strategy differences between lineup and best ball startup draft trading? Do elite players values come down a bit in best ball? I love that question. I don't play a lot of best ball, so I haven't thought a ton about strategy. But I have a little bit, and I do have some thoughts on this, but yeah, I just love that question, Zane. Thank you for that. So first of all, I think the quarterback extreme, so a lot of people would say, if I'm trying to set a lineup and I'm trying to find, the best player, in the best matchup possible for both my quarterback and my super flex spot, which is kind of what we're trying to do with quarterback extreme with your 5 quarterbacks. You're trying to find the two with the most upside for the week, essentially. And first of all, that part's tough enough for a lot of people. The idea that maybe you bench Dak Prescott because he's in a bad matchup. He's playing the LA Rams this week. Meanwhile, I also have Ryan Tannehill, and he's playing the Jaguars. He's playing the Texans. So, you bench Dak for Tannehill. That's not a move that people like to make anyways. And so, quarterback extreme is a hard enough sell, but like you can kind of get people on board with that idea after a while in a league where you're setting a lineup. But in best ball, it's even more like, yeah, there's no reason for me to have, Ryan Tannehill on my roster if I already have Dak Prescott and Josh Allen. There's no reason, there's no need for it. I feel like it's the exact opposite. I feel like, the toughest part with quarterback extreme, the toughest part with streaming quarterbacks, and particularly streaming quarterbacks within your own roster in a SuperFlex league, the hardest part is getting that right. Well, in best ball, you don't have to get it right anymore. We don't have to have elite quarterbacks and figure out which ones are going to actually hit their numbers this week, because best ball is just going to put those guys into your, they're just going to count that guy's scoring. So, if you've got Geno Smith on your bench and he happens to outscore Dak Prescott for the week for whatever reason, it will happen at some point. I can almost guarantee you that at some point Geno Smith is going to have, even if it's just one time all season, he's going to have a better week than Dak Prescott. And we didn't have to get that right. We didn't have to try and predict that. It just happened for us. So to me, it's actually more important at the positions where, that are matchup dependent. So definitely quarterback, to a certain extent running back. Although a lot of times for them it's more game script than matchup, but that's still a position that can change from week to week. At running back, you can bench one guy because he's in a bad matchup and put in another guy because, or he's facing a bad game script. You put in another guy who is likely going to have a positive game script. Sometimes tight end can be the same way. There's certain defenses that are really good at defending tight ends and others that aren't. Wide receiver, even though there are lockdown cornerbacks around the league, for wide receivers, it's all about volume. We've seen this so many times. A wide receiver one goes up against Jalen Ramsey, and they're just like, the offensive coordinator just says, you know what? I don't care. Like, we're just going to keep throwing at him. We're going to keep throwing at him until we get him the ball and get him in space. And, if nothing else, we're going to wait till we get down around the goal line and we're going to hit that back shoulder fade. And, they're not afraid of cornerbacks. So that's the one position where I still feel like you just go lean either way. You just have your main guys who they're likely going to be your top scorers every single week at the wide receiver position. You don't need a whole lot of depth behind them. But the rest of these positions, to me, all of a sudden, you don't need studs. You just need depth, because your lineup is going to catch those guys who have the best week for you. But that's a great question, Zane. And there are going to be differing opinions on that out there. I'm all ears on that stuff, because like I said, I don't play a lot of best ball. And so this is all just kind of, my limited view of best ball. I would love to see, what arguments people have against that. But to me, you get quarterback depth, you get running back depth, and your lineup is going to get it right for you, so you don't have to. Recovering Ridley Truther says, based on this offseason SuperFlex startups, would you say the QBX strategy is tough this year? Yes, definitely. Seems like outside the 3rd to 5th round, Derek Carr to Kirk Cousins, Mac Jones types, there's a big tier drop to like the Ryan Tannehill tier, for instance. Yeah, absolutely agree. So it's harder in that it's a little bit harder to determine who are the guys worth drafting. Like we talked about Geno Smith earlier. Is he worth it? Is he necessarily worth a draft pick, especially if, we're going to count on him to be part of our rotation? The problem is we don't know if he's going to have the job, And then the other thing in dynasty leagues, especially, is not only are we looking for the guys who are going to have a job this year, but we're really hoping to find somebody who's going to solidify the position for us next year as well. And that shrinks the universe of draftable quarterbacks that much more. We've got a good quarterback rookie class coming in. There's going to be a lot of guys who lose their jobs this year. You've got the older guys, Matt Ryan and Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady, that, eventually we're going to lose those guys to retirement. But we also know, Baker Mayfield is going to be a short-term proposition. Daniel Jones is kind of at the end of his leash. We've got so many of these guys that we're just not, even Ryan Tannehill, like we said earlier, we're just not sure how much longer they're going to let him go. And so it makes it that much tougher when you're trying to draft a dynasty superflex roster and saying, I have no idea if these guys are going to have a job beyond 2022, even if they have a job in 2022. We have probably about 20 of those guys that we feel good about in 2023 and beyond. There's a bunch of guys that we're just not sure about. The thing that it does, though, where it does make things a little bit easier for us, is it's pushing NFL starters way, way down. Like we usually say, part of the reason that you start early in quarterback extreme, it's not to get the elite level guys. It's so that you've got the runway to get, enough quarterbacks before they run out. And usually the rule of thumb is, 10th round is kind of where the NFL starting quarterbacks really dry up, right? And right now we're seeing them last into the 14th, 15th round. So you've got a lot more time to get, if you're going quarterback extreme, you want 5 quarterbacks. Now you've got probably until the 14th or 15th round to get your 5th guy. So it makes it easier from that standpoint. But yeah, as far as locking up some long-term stability at the quarterback position, man, that's hard to do right now. We just don't know who those quarterbacks are that are going to keep their job for a while. Stickman87 says, thanks for the feedback. Hell yeah, man. Yeah, thank you for the question. Follow up. Been talking to the Stafford owner, and he might be open to swapping Tua for Stafford. Would you go for that, or is it better to stick with Tua and youth? I think it kind of so I believe you said you're a contender. So I think I probably would prefer Stafford over Tua. If it's a straight up proposition. If you have to include that 2023 first, I wouldn't do that. I would stick with Tua. I think that their scoring is going to be similar, but I do think that Stafford probably gives you a safer floor, a higher floor, at least for the short term. And I'm not worried about him, long term. Like, I don't feel like he's one of those guys who's on the verge of losing his job. I think he's got some job security that not many quarterbacks have. So, I think that he's a good long-term investment as well. So it just really kind of depends on what you have to add to Tua. But if you can do it straight up, yeah, I'm good with that. I think that Matthew Stafford is young enough that you're going to have plenty of time to find a replacement for him before he's completely gone. Let's see. Pato says Hunter Renfrow and Marlon Mack for Kadarius Toney. Meh. Yeah, I don't know. I've heard all about Kadarius Toney. I had Jesse Reeves on the show earlier in the offseason, and one of my favorite dudes, and he also kind of led the charge on the Kadarius Toney breakout coming. And man, typically when he talks, I listen, but with Toney, with the makeup of that offense, with you've got a new system, you've got Daniel Jones kind of fighting for his to keep his job long term. I think they're just way too many ways for this offense to just be Saquon Barkley and not much else. And I just have a hard time seeing, Kadarius Toney is necessarily like a breakout type of guy, especially like why him? Why not Sterling Shepard? Why not Kenny Golladay? Why not Wan'Dale Robinson? Any one of those guys. How do you pick one out of the lineup? So yeah, I'm not a strong believer in Kadarius Toney. Not a huge fan of Hunter Renfrow either, but the big thing is here you're giving up a running back who very well could be a starter for his team, and basically making a lateral move at wide receiver. And like I said, giving up a running back to do it. I would rather stick with the running back depth, and I think that you're probably like Renfro is safer. Tony has more upside, but I think that you're fine with the floor that Renfro gives you, and then, like I said, that extra running back depth. I'd hang on to those guys. Corey Dean says, yeah, Russell Wilson equals more offensive snaps, more chances. Yep, exactly. Yeah, that's yeah. I love Javonte Williams this season just because of that. Just everything that Russell Wilson does for that entire roster. I think Javonte Williams is the biggest beneficiary. Jaw says, I love Wilson. Other than landing spots, he's clearly the best in my opinion. Garrett Wilson, I believe, and yeah, fully agree. With the rise in Olave's ADP and dip in, this is a recovering Ridley truther. With the rise in Olave's ADP and dip in Burks, what do you think of tearing down to Olave for Burks plus? Just saw I have like 33% rostership of Olave, only one Burks. Yeah, man, if you're able to get Burks plus for Olave, I think that's a move. I mean, I know that there's bigger critics of Treylon Burks in here than I am. So yeah, maybe Jaw answered that as well, because I think that he was one of them that's very clearly not a fan of Treylon Burks. To me, yeah, if again, whichever side comes with the plus sign, that's the side I'll take, because I feel like those guys have a very equal opportunity to break out. Particularly as rookies, I think. But even if it's not as a rookie, I think that the probabilities of those guys hitting are very, very similar. Kevin asks, do you believe Mac Jones steps up this year? Yeah, I do. I really kind of like Mac Jones this year. I still don't think that there's a ton of upside. But I think that, the way he picked up that system so quickly, I mean, I do think that there's a possibility that hurts a little bit that he's learning a new system without Josh McDaniels. But I believe they're still going to run essentially the same system. I think it's Matt Patricia now. If I got that wrong, somebody correct me. But I believe he takes over offensive play calling, and I think he's going to run the same basic offense. But yeah, Mac Jones with essentially the same environment, plus a full year of experience. That's all positive to me. I feel like there's an opportunity for him to take a big step, and I think that he's going to take some of these guys right along with him. I think Jacoby Myers is a guy that I think is primed for a breakout, and I think that there's room for Hunter Henry as well. Maybe even a resurrection of Jonnu Smith. There's a lot of potential on that offense, but yeah, it all starts with Mac. Josh says Mac was the best rookie quarterback last year. So yes is my answer. He seems to be a good leader and locker room guy. Important. Yeah, especially for that team. They really value stuff like that. They really kind of tend to value, the locker room guys, the coachability, stuff like that. And I think they found that with Mac. Tim Ford, thanks for the feedback. And I'm in a dynasty league, but we keep 4 players every year. And I got Cam Akers in the 9th round and Trevor Lawrence in the 6th round, and also Mark Andrews in the 11th round. Wow, those are all really nice values. Yeah, that's so we would classify that as a keeper league. If you're only keeping 4 players. Dynasty league, you would literally keep your entire roster. and the only draft that you would do is just a rookie draft. So so that's a keeper league, but man, those are some nice keepers. I don't remember who it was that we were talking about keeping in the second round. Javonte, that's who it was. Javonte Williams. Javonte Williams in the second round, like that's good value, but there's a chance that you still get him in the second round. Whereas Cam Akers is probably the first guy that I would consider cutting out of that group. There's no way you get him in the 9th round, especially of a keeper depleted draft like that. So I think you're on it. I think, those three guys for sure, Akers, Lawrence, and Andrews. To me, Javonte is still worth the keep it in the second round. But if you have other options, I think that's Javonte. You could definitely throw Javonte back as second round value. Robert Iani says 12-team SuperFlex, start 10 tight end premium. Send Justin Jefferson, Rashad Bateman, an early 23 second for Jalen Waddle, T. Higgins, a mid to early 2023 first would be the 6th first I'd have for next year. That's pretty cool. I'll tell you up front, I don't like to try and project where they're going to be. We've just seen way too much. We've seen it way too many times where a team that looks like, they're going to be pretty rough go into the season and then, make some moves, get hot late, and, sneak into the playoffs. And then I've said this before, I don't have stats on this, but I would be willing to bet that most fantasy championships are won by the 5th and 6th seeds. The people who had to sneak in and scratch and claw to get there, they usually make a run. Whereas that first seed who just kind of coasted through the entire season, just steamrolling people for the first, 8, 9 weeks of the season, 10 weeks of the season or whatever. And then all of a sudden, their players start getting hurt and they're not prepared for it. And they end up getting upset in the first round. I think it's anecdotal as hell, but I think it happens a lot. And then we also see some teams that we think are going to be strong contenders. Last year, if you had a team with Saquon Barkley and Christian McCaffrey on it, you went into it feeling like, all right, I'm going to make my 2022 first a late one. And what actually ended up happening, So I try not to do that part of it. So I just call them random picks. We're going to say like a random 23 second, a random 23 first. But we can still put pretty significant value on them. I feel like any pick in 2023 is going to be worth more than most picks in 2022. Like, so yeah, we're not going to devalue it a ton by doing that. It's just easier to make good decisions when you don't try and project them like that. So, but let's see, Justin Jefferson, Rashad Bateman, and a 23 second for Jalen Waddle, T. Higgins, and a 23 first. And yeah, yeah, people might hate this one too, but I'll take that. I'll take the side with the first. I'll, upgrade it from a second to a first. Waddle, I think, is going to score close enough to Jefferson. And that might be a little inflammatory, but I mean, Higgins is going to make up the difference, especially, relative to Rashad Bateman. I think the combination of Waddle and Higgins scores very similarly to the combination of Jefferson and Bateman. Certainly similarly enough that you can justify upgrading a second to a first, if that makes sense. So yeah, I'll take Waddle, Higgins, and that first. A lot of people are going to hate that. It's blasphemy to to suggest trading away Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase right now. But yeah, for that type of haul, I don't think you're giving up a whole lot of scoring and you're adding a first. I would do it. Let's see. So Tim Ford says we get to keep who we have every year, not just for 1 year, and it's every year we have them. Okay, yeah, that does sound like a dynasty. The draft is a little confusing to me, but um, yeah, yeah, like if you're keeping every player, like I said, basically the differentiator for a dynasty league is the only draft you're going to be doing is rookies, and I mean sometimes players who are available in free agency, like the guys who were left on waivers at the end of the season, the previous season. Those guys are available as well, but you're not drafting anybody else. Like if you've got a 25-man roster, that entire roster is set. Um, obviously you make trades, you can add and drop players, but you don't throw them back for them to be drafted by somebody else, if that makes sense. Okay. Lufty, kind of like that name. That's fun. 10 teams, start 8, PPR, SuperFlex, 1.5 tight end premium. I would give T. Higgins, and I would get a 2023 first, Brandon Cooks, Isaiah Spiller, Robert Tonyan. Yep, sign me up. Do it. I'll take it. I think Brandon Cooks is going to make up a lot of the scoring for T. Higgins. And then, you added 2023 first. And then Spiller and Tonyan, and Tonyan in a tight end premium. Normally I would be a little bit nervous with a move where you're giving up one player and you're taking on 3 players, because who do you have to cut in order to make room? But in this case, I don't care. I don't care who you have to cut. I'm sure you've got somebody that you can get rid of off the end of your bench that'll make some room for these guys, because there's just so much upside on that side. So yeah, I'll do it. I'll give up the efficiency of T. Higgins because I think you're going to get multiple starters out of this deal. Tim Ford, I thought it was a dynasty league, but you might be right. And I've been in this league for 7+ years, and I always thought it was a dynasty. I'm in another league, and we keep one guy for a year, and then we have to pick someone else to keep. Now that's a keeper league. Yeah, so those are both keeper leagues. They're just kind of different formats of keeper leagues. But yeah, but man, like I've got some keeper leagues as well. I've got different formats of keeper leagues. I'm in Ryan McDowell's kitchen sink leagues, which are like contract leagues, and that's essentially, it's a glorified keeper league. You can give players contracts of 1 to 4 years. You get franchise tag, transition tag. We've got restricted free agency, but at the end of the day, you're deciding which players you're going to keep of the ones with expiring contracts. So it's still a keeper league. And then I've got just a straight up keeper league where we get two keepers every year, and they're keeper eligible for 3 years, I believe, 2 or 3 years, and then they get thrown back, and we have to pick new ones. So, we can pick new ones at any point. So there's a lot of different ways to play keeper leagues, but they're fun, man, and it's a totally different set of strategy, and I'm always down to talk about those. We're definitely not here to to judge or to belittle keeper leagues, because to me they're just as fun and they're just as viable. I enjoy talking strategy on those just as much as dynasty. Recovering Ridley Truther says, for the incoming 2023 quarterbacks, People are so thirsty for young quarterbacks too, with how fleeced we got from the 2022 quarterback class. Yeah, duped us. Yeah, exactly. And it, I've kind of been thinking a lot about this and talking a lot about it. We're gonna feel the ripple effects for several years here. We're already seeing it. I mean, 2023 picks are already basically at full value. You basically have to trade, a high end starter to get a 2023 first in most cases. And we're already, and we're starting to put more value on 2024 draft picks than we normally would put on a pick that's 2 years out. And the reason for it is, we're trying to get in on the quarterbacks when they come along, because right now, we're already kind of losing some guys just through attrition. And then this draft class did absolutely nothing to replace them. Like, I have no doubt that Desmond Ridder will start some games. I have no doubt that, well, I have a lot of doubts that Malik Willis will. I don't know that Matt Corral will, especially now that they're so deep at quarterback. I'm sure Kenny Pickett will at some point. I don't know that he necessarily should. I think Mitchell Trubisky is the better quarterback, and I think they're going to come to that realization pretty quickly. But they'll probably still give him an opportunity somewhere along the line. He used a first-round pick, so might as well see what you've got. But I have no doubt that these guys are going to start some games, but it's just going to be, all right, we drafted him. Let's see what we got. It's going to be very end of the season. And, the season, like, we're eliminated from playoff contention. All right, let's see what this guy can do. Oh, that's what he can do? Oh, cool. We're still looking for a quarterback in 2023, like these guys, they're going to get an audition, but it's not going to be much of one. And I just don't think that they're going to be able to take advantage of it and secure a job, any of them. So yeah, 2022 was just a complete waste for us as far as restocking quarterbacks. Freak Stop 49ers here. I traded Alvin Kamara for a 2023 first and Kareem Hunt. I think we talked about that last time we did a Super Friday. I think we talked about that trade. Then used a first, a third, and 2 fourths to buy Dobbins and Gallup. So turned Kamara and some garbage picks into Dobbins, Hunt, and Gallup. 12-team PPR SuperFlex. Yeah. and then the question right after that, very simply, did I screw up? No, I don't think so. I think I don't think that you're going to see the fruits of your labor right away is part of the problem. I mean, you're getting damaged goods, obviously. You're getting Dobbins coming off the ACL. You're getting Gallup coming off his ACL. It very well could limit those guys, especially Dobbins in 2022. I think what I kind of think is going to happen here is they're going to slow play it with Dobbins. They've even talked about starting him on PUP. Don't tell him I said that, because apparently he'll quote tweet me and just dog walk me for it like he did to Ian Rappaport. But there's still a possibility he starts on PUP. Either way, I don't think that they're going to put much of a workload on him. And I think he's probably going to lose some value over the course of the season. So it's definitely possible that if you had waited a few months, you might have got him cheaper. But I have no problem with this trade. I love getting away from Kamara. I think, so with these older running backs, these aging running backs who have already have a lot of usage, a lot of miles on the tires, get out too early rather than getting out too late. And I think that's what you did with Kamara here. And then, yeah, I mean, Dobbins, for a first is really kind of what we're talking about as far as I'm concerned. I mean, Hunt and Gallup are nice depth pieces, but they don't really move the needle all that much for me. We're really just kind of talking about that first, from Kamara to a first to Dobbins. That's really kind of the move. And like I said, there's actually a decent chance that you could have got him cheaper, but whatever, man. Like, make the move, wait it out. That's going to be the key, though. The key is going to be patient with Dobbins. Give him this year to get past the injury. Wait till 2023. Even if people are offering to bail you out, they're saying, "Oh, you made a bad trade. You gave up a 2023 first, and he's nothing. He's done. He's injury prone." That's the other thing that's going to happen. Wait till 2023, and wait and see what happens then. And he's going to return that value plus some for you. But yeah, you're going to have to be a little bit patient with him, unfortunately. Kyle Senra is in the house. Says hi, everyone. Ridley Truther says appreciate the show, by the way. Yeah, of course. I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys showing up and talking football with me on a Monday night instead of a Friday night, of all things. So yeah, like I said, this is something that I've felt like we kind of needed to do. It's kind of been missing all this strategy talk the last few weeks, and don't really have the opportunity to hear from the people who are in the trenches right now. You guys are the ones out there dealing with this stuff right now. So, you guys are the ones with the unique strategy problems and the player value stuff, and that we need to talk about. So yeah, I'm glad that we could do this. This is good. This is important. Jaw Webb says, that's why I took Tyrod in Superflex best ball. How many chances can Daniel Jones get? Yeah, back when we were talking about the Giants and just kind of the trajectory of that offense, and Kadarius Toney is kind of a result. But I mean, yeah, I think that's probably in play. I think that they'll give Daniel Jones every opportunity, but they brought in Tyrod Taylor for a very important reason, which is they don't know for sure what they've got at quarterback right now, and they want some experience behind him. So yeah, you could absolutely get something out of him late in the season. Let's see. Now I'm just observing you guys' conversations at the moment. Yeah, Josh said kind of the same thing I did as far as Dobbins. Midway through this year, next year is the time to make the move. Yeah, I like that, definitely. I don't have a problem with doing it now, but I had a conversation in DMs, and I need to look it up who it was. If I had a co-host here, I would definitely, somebody that could vamp for me while I look it up. I would take full advantage, and I would go on to Twitter and look this up so that I could give credit for this, because this is super important. But somebody in DMs was kind of talking about making some trades. So he did a startup, and I think it's my friend Kenny, Dynasty Beach Boy, I believe is the handle on Twitter. He's talking about he just did a startup and went kind of a zero RB type of approach, like really kind of built it to be a young foundation, a young core, focusing on wide receivers because they give you the longer shelf life, focusing on quarterback because of, for the same reason, long shelf life, really kind of faded running backs for the most part. And now there are some teams that somehow don't have the wide receivers that they want. So there's kind of a market for him to go take advantage of. But he's feeling like, and this is a part that I love, he's kind of feeling like, what's the point of making a move for a running back right now. Before training camp, before preseason, that's where those guys end up getting hurt. Tearing ACLs, tearing Achilles, and we end up losing them for the entire season before the season even starts. And their value is not going to change. If they survive the preseason, they make it all the way through the preseason, get to the start of the season, they're still going to have the exact same value. So why trade for them now? It just kind of, I've heard it said so many different times and in so many different ways, and that was just kind of the one that finally clicked for me. It's like, yeah, we don't need to trade for running backs yet. Like, let's see if they're going to stay healthy and be available for us, at least for the start of the season, before we trade for them. So thought that was interesting. But, I mean, sometimes these trades present themselves at a certain time, and then that was kind of your window. So I have no problem making the move for Dobbins right now. And like I said, ultimately, I think he's going to return full value. You're going to have to be patient in order to get that full return from him. Tony Coleman is here. Yes. Evaluating my 2023 first, which is less valuable, a first from a team with an awesome starting lineup, but zero depth, and one true starting quarterback, or a team that's very well rounded and deep. I think it's close, because it's going to come down to in-season management. That team with with a good starting lineup but no depth, if they're aware of that, they could definitely still find what. It also depends on league settings. If these are if it's 12 teams, 30 man rosters, it's going to be a little bit tougher for them to to find what they need on waivers. But it's still doable. It's still possible. It's also pretty easy for the team with a lot of depth, well-rounded and deep. It's very possible for them to miss out on a lot of the guys that are going to come off of waivers, because they don't feel like they have the roster space. So, I mean, I definitely, I know what you're driving at, Tony, and I think overall I'm with you. I think that I would rather bet on the team with the depth, the more rounded and deep. I think that 2023 first, gun to my head, is more likely to be later. But there definitely a lot of ways for that other team to make a run and go win a championship as well. They've got plenty of outs as well. But yeah, I think it's fair to and I mean, this is part of why I just generally don't really like to say, all right, this pick is going to be early, this pick is going to be late. It's just so hard to say. It's going to depend on the moves that they make. It's going to depend on their level of activity. It's going to depend on, their attention to waivers. It's going to depend on the trades that they make, things like that. So I just don't like to project it for that reason. But yeah, if you were going to do it, I think that probably the safe bet is that deeper team is likely to finish the season better. Caleb says, dude, been tuning into your YouTube lives for a while now, and you inspired me to start my own YouTube channel. Oh, awesome. Recommendation for a live streaming software. Yeah, we use StreamYard here at DLF, and I use it for the SuperFlex Super Show as well. So you can just record audio, you can record video. It makes it super easy. You can link it to YouTube. You can link it to. You used to be able to Periscope, Twitch. You can link it to Twitch. You can link it to. Right now, I'm on Facebook. I'm on 3 different Twitter feeds, and I'm on the YouTube channel for DLF. So, and it's super easy. You link all of those and you just pick whichever ones you want to stream to. They've got some really cool options as far as, branding and stuff like that. I actually meant to mess with this a little bit. You can put some like a pad of music behind you. Yeah. I assume you guys can hear that. I don't think we need it to be quite so loud. Yeah, they've got a bunch of different ones. You can put you can put your logo. You can, obviously you can, you can put banners up and stuff. You can, put these comments up. So yeah, all kinds of good stuff. The only problem is it's a little expensive, but man, it's, to me, it's absolutely worth it. This is the way to go. Dylan Vergara is here. Don't hear people talking about how terrible the Pats secondary looks on paper. To me, that means other teams will game plan to attack them through the air, speeding up pace of play and forcing shootouts. Yeah, that's an interesting take too. I mean, I think at this point, Belichick has kind of earned the benefit of the doubt when it comes to offense, because he's never really prioritized the defensive secondary. Other than that time that he randomly signed Darrelle Revis to a big contract. But beyond that, I mean, and they've found great corners. They've found great safeties in the past. Most recently JC Jackson, obviously, but they've had some of the, they've developed some of the best corners in the league throughout the Belichick tenure. So they'll probably find someone, but it's certainly possible, man. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with aiming to exploit that a little bit and say, you know what, the Patriots are probably going to be in some fairly negative game scripts. They're probably going to have to throw a lot. They're probably going to have to score a lot to keep up with some people. That defense took several hits. So yeah, it's certainly possible. Let's see. Ja said, but matching production and amassing studs are two different things. Let's see. Oh yeah, when we were talking about in those shallower leagues, yeah, that's definitely fair. And the path is amassing studs, not trading JJ to match production through 2 spots. Yeah, I don't know. I get what you're saying. I don't know that it matters enough at wide receiver. If it's some of the other positions, I think that I would definitely be on board with that. Like wide receivers have, not all of them, but most of them have, like there's like a bucket of like 40 of them who all have very similar floors. And then there's going to be one guy who just like blows everybody else away. It could be Jefferson again. It was Stephon Diggs 2 years ago, Kupp last year, of course. So there are a couple guys who kind of separate themselves from the rest of that tier, but for the most part, it's just that whole position is just one big tier. And I do think that Jalen Waddle and Justin Jefferson probably fit into that tier together. Not that they're going to score identically, but I think that they're going to be close enough on a per game basis. That's just my own personal opinion. But like I said it at the time, I know that it's blasphemy to recommend trading away Justin Jefferson for much of anything. And I do think that you're right that you kind of fine tune it a little bit when you start talking about a narrower league like that. But yeah, at the end of the day, I just think that you can get very similar scoring from Waddle and Higgins. Freak Stomp 49er says it's all good. I have multiple firsts, and he's my running back 4 right now. So that's Dobbins. I'm hoping he might pop off by the time playoffs come around, or next year even. I probably should have kept the first. Oops. No, I don't think so. I like I said, I think that at some point he's going to return full value, and I think it's gonna be. It's going to look like a great trade for you. The only thing is you have to be patient and wait for that. You're not going to get it immediately like you would in a lot of trades. Kyle Senra says, I wonder what you think of a recent JJ trade I made, Justin Jefferson. 12-team SuperFlex, start 10, PPR. Gave 104, 2 2023 firsts, and a 2023 second. Got Justin Jefferson and Evan Ingram. So I think to me it kind of depends. Like, so Drake London went at 104, so you gave up the opportunity cost of Drake London, but we talked about that. Who knows? Who knows which of these guys are going to break out and which ones are going to bust? Like, we all have our guesses. Nobody knows. So I like the idea of going to the known quantity of Justin Jefferson. I think my question would be who gets bumped to the bench. Obviously, Justin Jefferson starts over pretty much everyone. The only way that he's not just like instantly your wide receiver 1 is if you have Jamar Chase or Cooper Kupp. Like obviously it's an upgrade, but who gets bumped to the bench? That would be the question. Man, this music is maybe a little too much of a downer. Let's get some rock. All right, that's better. Now we're ready. We've got some guitars, got some drums. All right. Let's see. Yeah, Freak Stomp 49ers already a playoff team, so it's just for some depth, and you've got the luxury of waiting on Dobbins. If he's your running back 4, you're not counting on him this year. You have the luxury of waiting, and he'll hit that 2023 first value at some point. Tony Coleman says, trying to guide a team to the bottom, but I have Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson, Tua, Justin Fields, young wide receivers with potential, Kittle, Freiermuth at tight end, but nothing at running back. Should I abandon my tanking? Yeah, I think that you probably should, honestly. I think that this is a team that could go win a championship with because we know that there are going to be some guys on waivers. We know that you're going to be able to find Donta Foreman and who are some of the other guys? Like, I always draw a blank when I try and talk about when I try and come up with the examples of the guys who, late in the season had a role and ended up being, league winner type of guys. Dontrell Hilliard for a minute. I think that you can find guys like that to support the rest of this roster. So it's just going to be a matter of staying on top of the running backs, continuing to churn them. I think you're gonna have a little bit of a tough time at the start of the season without one of the studs who's gonna have that starting job. But as the season goes on, it's gonna even out more and more, I think. So yeah, I would try and compete with that team. I think that team's just ready to go get a championship. And the draft pick that you do have, even if it ends up being a later one, I think you're still going to go get a very usable, if not a starting running back in the rookie draft still, Tony. So Dan Marino's here. Holy hell. I am acting like I know anything about quarterback, and we've got Dan Marino in the chat. And he's asking me SuperFlex questions. This is surreal, man. Dan Marino asks 12-team SuperFlex PPR, start 10, Keenan Allen, Zach Ertz, 23 second, or Jameson Williams, Dawson Knox, Hassan Haskins, and a 2023 third. Man. This is surprisingly tough. I think I want to stay with the old guys in the second. It's tempting to get young with Jameson Williams, but I still think that I think you're better off with Keenan Allen, Zach Ertz, and Dawson Knox, especially without a tight end premium. Those guys just kind of cancel each other out. So then you're talking about Haskins in a third for a second. Give me the second, And again, I legitimately would prefer Keenan Allen to Jameson Williams. As good as I think Jameson Williams could be, again, we just don't know. We know what we're getting with Keenan Allen, and it's a nice, safe floor at wide receiver. So I'll take him. Freak Stomp 49er. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Great show. Don't forget to hit that like. Yes, thank you. And thank you for reminding me. Yeah. Do me a favor and hit the like button on this and show everybody at DLF that it's always a good thing when SFD gets on the live feed here, that they can trust me not to embarrass myself and embarrass them and just drop a bunch of F-bombs and really bad advice. That's we don't do that here. That's Wednesday with Peter Howard. Don't tell him I said that though. Let's see. Where are we at? Costy says DJ Moore or 23 first. You know what? I think that's dead even. Superflex, start 10 PPR. Yeah, I think it's dead even, and it's not because I don't think that DJ Moore can't be just fine with Baker Mayfield. It's not because there aren't brighter days ahead for DJ Moore. It's just this is what it takes right now to get a 2023 first. You have to give up players like DJ Moore to do it. I mean, I'm not saying that I would just absolutely do it. It's not like a smash accept for me. Like I said, it's even. This is DJ Moore's value, and this is a value of a 2023 first is DJ Moore. So it can come down to roster build. If DJ Moore is your wide receiver one, I'm probably not doing it. I think that you can replace DJ Moore's scoring relatively easy. So I wouldn't be afraid to do it if he's kind of like a flex level type of guy for me. But I think that there are definitely roster builds where I would still rather have DJ Moore, particularly if I'm going to make a run at a championship this year. I'd rather have the points this year. But yeah, honestly, like that's what it takes to get a 2023 first. So, if it makes sense for you to let go of DJ Moore to do it, that's how you have to get those picks at the moment. Let's see. Freak Stomp 49ers said I didn't call the first a garbage pick. I called the third and 2/4 that I thought that I threw in garbage picks. Yeah, that's the way I read that. And I'm with you. I don't care about those late picks. Like, I'll just take whatever random running backs, but I just have very, very little hope for those. I almost would rather just not even deal with it, if I'm being honest. Let's see. Guillermo Memo is here. Oh, this is a great SuperFlex Super Friday on Monday. I know, right? Yeah. It just adds a little bit of it just adds a little bit of energy to call this Monday night a Friday night. I don't know. Just makes it feel like we should be wearing Hawaiian shirts and drinking umbrella drinks and stuff, even though it's a Monday night. BJ Lee says, thanks for the stream. Always love input from others. Yeah, thank you, man. Thanks for joining and for asking the question and joining in the conversation. Fighting. There's some fighting words in there. All right. Easy, guys. I don't think it's that important. Raul, hell yeah. Welcome in, Raul. Thanks. It's good to see you, my man. Joe says, hey, everyone. What's up, Joe? Thanks for joining. Tony Coleman sitting on Donta Foreman. Hell yeah. Yeah, you've got a good start. He probably doesn't appreciate you sitting on him, but once you get up off of him, he's going to be a useful running back for you. Gainwell, Mark Ingram. Hey, if Alvin Kamara gets suspended, Mark Ingram is your week 1 guy. Trey Sermon, Zamir White, Snoop Connor. If Etienne and Robinson aren't ready, Snoop Connor is your week 1 guy. You've got some options here, man. I think you've got a decent group of running backs. It's not sexy names, but I think that you're going to be able to put together a winning lineup most weeks, and I think that you'll get a decent start. I think some of these guys are going to end up with some big-time league-winning potential. Gainwell, Sermon, those are guys I really like late in the season if the starter goes down. Let's see. Kevin says, saying to Tony, maybe shop Fields and Tua for a running back. You have great quarterback depth, so someone needs a quarterback. Of course, no straight up trades. Yeah, that's a decent move too. I mean, that's part of the advantage that we create for ourselves with Quarterback Extreme. To have those quarterbacks, it gives you the opportunity to potentially trade one away without getting one back in return, and you're still going to be fine at quarterback. Obviously, like, that's not my primary goal, but when you're the only one in the league with the ability to do that, you're the only one who can give up a quarterback without getting one back in return. That gives you just so much more leverage to make a trade. So yeah, that's a possibility too, Tony. I mean, you can definitely explore that as well, but you also know my feeling on just having having those quarterbacks on your roster and having the ability to stream. So either way. Pato says thoughts on Alvin Kamara. Yeah, so kind of like I said earlier, I think overall, I don't want to speculate on a suspension. I honestly have no idea. And it feels like there's probably something coming. First offense, so who knows, as far as duration goes. But even more than that, to me, the more compelling point with Alvin Kamara is year 6 running back. And in those first 5 years, there's been quite a bit of usage. We've seen the injuries starting to catch up with him a little bit, so and that there's just kind of a usage cliff there. There's a an age cliff and a usage cliff. Like, they all just kind of come together. They just kind of converge, and usually year 5, year 6 is where it happens. So to me, that's coming for Kamara. It's coming for Zeke Elliott. If he's not already there, I could make the argument that he's already there. He looks like crap and has for several years. Derrick Henry should be there. And we're starting to see the injuries pile up on him, and people are starting to get concerned. Aaron Jones, Christian McCaffrey, he's kind of a different thing because it's with him, it is more about the injuries than the time served in the usage. But all of the guys from that 2017 class, it's kind of, there's definitely the potential for for them to be usable for another year. They could be productive in 2022, but that cliff is coming, and you really hate to be stuck with them when they hit it because their value just tanks. So to me, it's always better to get out early than to get out too late. And Alvin Kamara is kind of the poster child for this. This is a time to get out from under Alvin Kamara before that cliff really gets him. Dan Marino says 12-team SuperFlex, start 10 PPR. How would you rate my team? Can I contend? Pat Mahomes, that's all I need to know right there. You got Pat Mahomes, you're good. Let's see, Keenan Allen, Mike Evans, Devonta Smith, Juju Smith-Schuster, James Conner, CEH, Cordero Patterson, Zach Ertz. Got 2023 firsts and 3 2023 seconds. So good draft capital to help build this thing up next year as well. You also have Burrow. Mahomes and Burrow set at quarterback. Although I kind of think that Burrow might be in for a down season. Narrative Street over here. For those who don't know, I live for those freaking narratives. And the post Super Bowl hangover, the team that loses the Super Bowl having a down year every single season, that compels me. I'm a little worried about the Cincinnati Bengals passing game for that reason, but you should still be fine. I mean, he should give you a decent floor at least, and you're not counting on him as your quarterback one because you got Mahomes. So we're a little old at wide receiver with the running backs coming next year. So, I wouldn't give it an A+, obviously. I think that there's some flaws there. But can you contend? Absolutely. I think this is a team that could absolutely go get a championship this year. It's same as what we were saying earlier, but this is just kind of true universally. It's going to come down to your level of activity, your level of attentiveness, the moves that you make off of waivers, the trades that you make. It's going to take in-season management for you. But kind of the nice thing about this roster is it is flawed to a point where you're going to have to make some moves. You're going to have to stay on top of it. You're not just going to, sleepwalk through the season. You're going to have to make some moves to get there. And to me, like I said, the teams that get to the playoffs, scratch and claw to get there, making moves off of waivers, making good trades, those are the teams that go on to win it. The team that just started out, drafted the perfect team and just kind of rolled through the regular season, they almost always get upset in the playoffs. So I would rather have a team like this where that you're going to have to stay on top of it. You're going to have to make some weekly moves. I would rather have that than, just this stacked lineup with, Jonathan Taylor and, Christian McCaffrey and, Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. Like it sounds crazy, but I would rather have your team. Except for the value piece. Having that much value on your roster is not a bad thing, but you still have to use it, Costi ended up trading DJ for a first. Yeah, I think that's fine. Let's see, tanking with 3 2023 firsts and 3 2023 seconds now, and I'm looking prime for a run next year. Yeah, so I think part of the key then is going to be to tank as much as you possibly can within the rules and the settings of your league. This is one of those things that, like, I'm probably not supposed to say that. I'm probably not supposed to recommend somebody tanking, like, pushing the boundaries of the rules. I'm probably not supposed to say that, but I like that's honestly, that's got to be the goal here. If you trade away DJ Moore to get a 2023 first, that you just made that 2023 first a slightly later one. So, in order to really rebuild this, you're going to have to guide your own pick to the very, very bottom. And I think that that's a legitimate strategy, honestly. And I have no problem with that trade. Like I said, DJ Moore, that's what it takes to get a first, to get a 2023 first. I think that was a fine trade. Now it's just a matter of committing to that strategy. Raul says Josh Jacobs or J.K. Dobbins. I'll take Dobbins. I think Jacobs is probably going to be a little bit more productive this year. But yeah, beyond that, I think he's still going to be stuck in a little bit of a committee. We know what Josh McDaniels wants to do with running backs. He's seriously probably going to use all four of those guys. So, I think I think that it's going to cut into Josh Jacobs' volume. I still think he's going to outscore J.K. Dobbins for the season, just because J.K. Dobbins, they're going to handle with kids' gloves coming back from that ACL. But yeah, 2023 and beyond, I think J.K. Dobbins just absolutely blows the doors off him. Memo says Keontae Ingram or Eno Benjamin. Man, that's going to be that's one of those camp battles that I think we're going to be pretty focused on. And a lot of people are going to tell you the answer is Darrell Williams. But I like Eno Benjamin, and I think that they do too. I think that they've been they've been kind of holding him back for a while now. They had Connor and Chase Edmonds there at the same time, and so there wasn't a whole lot of work for Eno Benjamin, but they still found ways to get him on the field. I think they're pretty committed to that. I kind of think Eno Benjamin is the handcuff that you want to Connor. Kyle said, to answer your question, John, that trade I made to acquire Jefferson and Ingram, those two replaced Devontae Parker and Juwan Johnson in my starting lineup. So yeah, slam dunk, love it. It's still expensive. I mean, it was 2 2023 firsts, and a 2022 first that I don't really care about, but 2 2023 firsts for Jefferson. I mean, that's his value probably. I can't imagine giving more than 2 2023 for, like, I can't imagine giving a third 2023 first for Justin Jefferson. That should be his value. So I think it's fine. But the fact that you get to upgrade from Devontae Parker to Justin Jefferson makes that definitely worth doing. Joe says, I am sitting on Trubisky, Huntley, and Jordan Love behind Herbert and Burrow. Take shots at cheap quarterbacks with upside if you have roster room, and see if you can flip them for some value. Yeah, I love that. I think you're going to have a starter right away out of Trubisky. I think you're going to have some value there that you can either keep him behind Herbert and Burrow for bye weeks or, potential injuries, or you're going to be able to cash in right away, but, when he wins that starting job out of camp. Huntley is one of my absolute favorites. I think he's going to end up with a starting job somewhere by 2023. So, and we know that Lamar Jackson isn't like not exactly the poster boy of health right at the moment. So there's a chance for Huntley to get back into that Ravens lineup. where he succeeded last year. So, yeah, some really good ones. And that's good advice. You know, a quarterback extreme really kind of focuses on loading up on starting NFL quarterbacks right now, starters right now. But that doesn't mean that you have to stop there. It just means, like, that's kind of the minimum. You know, you want those 5 starters, but there's nothing wrong with, loading up on some lotto tickets as well. Um, 12 team with that, not a championship contender unless he makes moves, major ones. Yeah. Okay. So I lost Ja. That's cool. That's all right. It's not for everyone. But I mean, this game is won in season. I guess that was the point. Just to set it and forget it lineup is not gonna get it done very often, but you don't have to agree. DB Cooper says, reigning champ, I've been offered DeAndre Swift for Chris Godwin and pick 210. I currently have AJ Brown, T. Higgins, and Devontae Adams, Nick Chubb, Jonathan Taylor, I assume, and Antonio Gibson. Should I do the deal? Yes. For me, that's a slam dunk. And it almost doesn't, I don't think that one even comes down to roster construction, to be honest. And I'd have to look up ADP, but I think that that's going to bear this out as well. I just think Swift is, several startup rounds ahead of Chris Godwin. And it's not just because of the injury. It's also the scarcity at the position. How hard it is to find a young workhorse running back like DeAndre Swift who catches passes out of the backfield. If you can get him for Godwin and 210 is, Freak Stomp 49er was talking about garbage picks. We're not quite there at 210, but we're getting close. They're very low hit rates at 210. So, I think you're getting DeAndre Swift extremely cheap. I would absolutely smash that. Nathaniel Bro, yo bro, what's up, man? Sorry I'm late to the game. Project out a year. Is Lamar Jackson a buy, sell, or hold for 2024? Oh man, that's a good question. That is freaking tough because I think we're getting close to the cliff with him. There's the injuries. There's the fact that at some point, in order for him to be sustainable as an NFL starter, he's going to have to find a way to stand in the pocket and throw the ball. And I really worry about what that's going to look like. So I think he's probably going to be a hold at that point, but we're getting awfully close. So a buy or a hold, just not a sell. I think that people are probably going to start to devalue him a little early. I think that, I think people are going to be trying to get out from under him. Kind of what we were saying about, running backs, get out a year early rather than a year late. I think people are probably going to do that with Lamar Jackson. And I don't think that that's a correct process at quarterback. So, but I think that cliff is going to be coming in hot for him by the offseason of 2024. Kyle Senra says, part of the reason I was confident trading away 3 firsts for Jefferson was that I have Lamar Jackson and Dak Prescott as my quarterback duo. Yeah. So, I mean, you're going to probably be making those later picks. At least that's going to be the goal. And Justin Jefferson only helps you do that more. Memo says, how is this year looking for Zach Wilson? Well, let me just tell you about my man, Zach Wilson. sexual history notwithstanding, the guy is just an absolute, yeah, he's a star on the rise. Yeah. Yeah, to me, it's like he's the most likely of the second-year quarterbacks to get that massive breakout that we've seen just about every year. You know, we got it from Pat Mahomes, we got it from Lamar Jackson, we got it from, we really kind of got it from Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert. Although Herbert really kind of broke out as a rookie. We had it from Carson Wentz a few years ago. Like, this is something that happens. This is another one of those narratives that I love so much. The second year breakout quarterback, and it's usually a pretty big, pretty substantial breakout. I think that, to me, Zach Wilson is in the best situation for that. You know, he's got starting experience. He's in the same system. They've upgraded his entire offense. The defense is still a little bit of a liability. So, you know, he could end up in some shootouts as well. So, yeah, to me, he's the most likely to break out. Now, I don't want to guarantee it for him. Like, I don't want to go that hot takey with it because, you know, Trevor Lawrence could certainly break out with Doug Peterson. Trey Lance finally getting an opportunity. It could happen with him. Justin Fields, it feels like a little bit tougher road for him, but I mean, getting away from Matt Nagy it certainly helps. Hell, we talked about Mac Jones possibly taking a step. I just think that Zach Wilson is the most likely to go from, you know, where those guys are, and they're all kind of bunched together right now in ADP, somewhere right around, you know, the middle of like quarterback 2 range. And I think that he's the most likely to jump up to a point where he's, you know, he's a top 5 dynasty quarterback this time next year. Raul says, I've got Brian Robinson, Tyrion Davis-Price, and Dontrell Hilliard. Feeling good about these guys on my bench. Yeah, that's another group of guys. All of those guys could get on the field at some point, just an injury or two away. And, you know, late in the season when we need them the most, that's when these guys step in. So, Nathaniel Bro asking about Lamar. So is he a sell this year? Not necessarily. I mean, I think that no, actually, yeah, not even. I'm not even gonna beat around the bush on this. I think he's a buy right now. People are taking Joe Burrow over him. People are taking Kyler Murray over him. People are taking Dak Prescott over him. And it's all based on last season. Like I said, there's injuries piling up, sure. But last season was just kind of worst case scenario across the board. Not just for Lamar, but for that entire Ravens team. They lost, it was something like 20 of their starters to injuries throughout the season, something like that. It was something crazy. Or maybe it wasn't starters, but something like 20, 25 players missed a significant portion of the season with injuries. Lamar himself missed several games. You know, you didn't have Bateman to start the season. You didn't have, but like the running game was just kind of pieced together with a bunch of old dudes for the most part. It was just, it was a mess. And, you know, there's just no way to project anything like that again. We just have to make too many assumptions about, you know, who's going to miss time, who's going to be injured. And I just think that it would be pretty horrible process of us to try and to act like that's the new normal for Lamar Jackson. Positive regression coming all over the place for Lamar and for that offense. So, yeah, to me, he's a buy right now. Mr. RJ Card says Lance and Fields, neither one of them are good passers. Davis Mills will finish ahead of both of them. That's a hotter take than mine, I think, but I don't hate it. Again, Fields just doesn't even really have weapons. I've had concerns about Trey Lance as a passer as well. So I think it's the rushing upside and it's the Kyle Shanahan upside that we're really kind of looking at. But yeah, I would not be surprised if this ends up happening. I can't even hate that, RJ. This is I would not be surprised at all if that happens. Davis Mills over Lance and Fields. Kevin says, I'm thinking Brian Robinson has a great chance to get on the field in Washington. Yeah, it sounds like he's going to be involved right away. And then, if you get an injury to Antonio Gibson, it's not like J.D. McKissick is going to pick up the early down work. He's going to just keep doing the same job either way. But, yeah, Brian Robinson would be the next man up if Gibson were to miss time. And, yeah, his role just kind of grows exponentially from there. I like that one. Mr. RJ Card says Lamar will make money on his legs, not his arm. Biggest hit to Baltimore fantasy will be to the running backs who not only don't get thrown to, but will lose goal line. Yeah, definitely in the short term. Yeah, I'm with you there. Like I said, in the short term, I think you're right. Like I said, though, I think long term, at some point, they're going to have to get him to transition into more of a pocket passer. Or, I mean, the other thing that they could potentially do is move on from him and just say, all right, now time for our next quarterback. But I mean, he can't run forever, and that's going to be the issue is when it's no longer viable for him to be running, especially designed runs all the time. It's one thing to extend a play. It's another thing to design a run for him, knowing full well that there's a chance that he takes a hit that totally changes the fortunes of your franchise. At some point they have to start to consider that. So, and I'm just curious what that's going to look like. Raul says, join me on the Chubb hype train for 2023 with no Kareem Hunt. Yeah. He's going to be in, year 5 or year 6 at that point. So we'll see. And Dearness Johnson is one of my favorite sleeper running backs. He is, he's another guy that's going to command work, whether Hunt's there or not. But I love Chubb, man. So, yeah, I'll definitely jump on the hype train with you. Memo says I've got Zach stacked with Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson. Traded a 2023 first with my buddy Raul. Wanted to make sure I had the wide receiver one. Going for the win this season. Yeah, I like that. I'm curious who the 2023 first got you. Was it one of the wide receivers or was it Zach Wilson? But yeah, that is a league winning type of move. Now, I'm not going to guarantee that wins you a championship, but that's the type of move, going for a stack like that. If that hits, man, that's going to be tough to beat on a weekly basis. So I like that. Nathaniel Bro, thanks for saving me from myself and my league mates talking points. Hell yeah, man. Kyle Senra says, thank you for the SuperFlex Super Fridays, SuperFlexDude, any day of the week. Yes, sir. Well, yeah, I like calling it SuperFlex Super Friday and then just have it kind of bounce around. We'll do it whenever we've all got time. We'll just jump in and do it, and still call it SuperFlex Super Friday. Lamar's contract year. This is RJ Card says Lamar's in a contract year. Baltimore won't care if he gets beat up. Oh yeah, so I think we're talking about two different things, RJ Cards, because I'm with you for this year. There's nothing stopping him this year, and there's, to your point, there's nothing stopping them from running him into the ground without a long-term contract either. So, yeah, this year I love Lamar. Like I said, positive regression coming for that entire offense with everybody healthy. So, so yeah, it's more long-term. It's like 2024 and beyond. What does it look like for Lamar? And it gets awfully cloudy. Memo got Garrett Wilson for a 2023 first. So yeah, that's probably a little bit of an overpay, but I mean, there is some value to getting that stack. And like you said, making sure you've got the guy in the breakout offense. So yeah, decent move. RJ Cards, what's your take on super sleeper Darrell Williams, who sits behind notorious James Conner? I think that if James Conner were to go down, so I think Williams has standalone value. I think he's probably going to be kind of a goal line type of guy for them, kind of the hammer for them. So I think he already has some standalone value. But if James Conner goes down, I'm not convinced that his role changes a lot. I think it changes. He probably picks up some of that volume, but I think a lot. I think there's going to be some of it as well that goes to, like I said, Eno Benjamin, I think, is the guy that they like the best. I think that's the guy that you see take on see the biggest increase in volume if James Conner were to go down. But yeah, I mean, Williams has value right now because, particularly in a best ball league, there are going to be times where he falls into the end zone 2-3 times in a game. And, you'll catch that in a best ball league. And every now and then you might even catch it in a lineup league. Memo says, I still have a 2023 first and 2 2023 seconds. Plus now got that Zach Wilson, Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore stack going. So yeah, we're good. We're good. Nathaniel Bro says, it seems I hear analysts using points per game and points above the mean more often. How do you process those types of numbers and analysis? Oh man, that's a good one. I'll be honest, I haven't noticed the points above the mean thing. I think that's kind of useful. That's something that I've been advocating for a while. Like, it's less about what is this player score, just kind of, this like isolating this player. What did he score? Certainly on average, like the average is, this from, you and I have had this conversation and I've talked about it on the Super Show. Averages get badly misused, but I think that it's a lot more useful rather than saying, okay. So I guess part of the problem is, like I said, I haven't really heard this, and I'm wondering if the mean that they're talking about is that player's mean, or is that the mean for the position? That's kind of the question, because I think that it is useful to say, this player this many times was, above the positional mean for the week. I think that's super useful. Above their own mean is, I don't think that tells you quite as much. That feels a little bit like like we're just kind of snuffing out boom bust players at that point. You know what I mean? I think that I think the mean is a lot more useful if you're looking at the entire position, not just at the individual player. But points per game, I'm not a fan of. I know that we have to use it to a certain extent, but like I said, it's just an average, and averages get misused. If you scored, if your player scored 30 points, and 10 points, average is so that's 70. So it averages somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 and a half ish. And but it doesn't tell the story of what happened in that one bad game. It doesn't tell the story. It doesn't tell the story that like there was 2 monster games and then one kind of not great game, so people kind of misuse some of that stuff. And yeah, I'm not a fan. Like if we used it properly, I think that it's fine. But way too many times people talk about a player's points per game, and it totally just removes the context of how they got there. Joe says the 23 class is so overhyped that trading a 23 pick for current talent has to be considered. Yeah, you pretty much have to do it. And like you said, I mean, and so to me, it's not even necessarily that it's overhyped. I think that it is a little overhyped, but I also think that it's more that the market is so starved for talented rookies because all we got this year, I say this all the time, what really drives a rookie class and its value and its power for dynasty purposes is running backs and quarterbacks. We didn't get any of those this year. We got Breece Hall. Like, that's all we got at 2 positions that are also just kind of, starting to this music's throwing me off. All right. Anyways, I dealt with that as long as I could. Pump me up for a minute, but now I'm done. Yeah, it's just the fact that people are so ready for that infusion of talent at those 2 positions, those 2 scarce positions, that and we didn't get that in 2022. So now people are, putting those expectations into 2023, and it's definitely caused those picks to achieve way more value than they should have a year out. But yeah, it just kind of, at some point you say that's a reality of the situation, just like you said, you have to consider trading away some current talent to do it. It's just kind of like, we all know the gas prices are way too high right now, but what are you going to do? Not drive, got to pay it. Got to do it. We can still complain about it, and we absolutely will. We'll complain about the value of these 2023 rookie picks as well. But at the end of the day, if we want them, we're going to pay for them. Ron T said, was thinking of trading James Conner, Jerry Jeudy, and a 2024 4th-round pick to get DJ Moore and Miles Sanders in my Dynasty PPR league. I have Baker Mayfield. So to complete that Carolina stack and then get Miles Sanders in there as well. So yeah, I'm fine with that. I think to me, Miles Sanders and James Conner are awfully close. In Dynasty, I'd probably even rather have Sanders. It feels weird, but I mean, it shouldn't, right? James Conner has not proven to be all that durable. Miles Sanders doesn't have a huge workload, but at least he's going to be there for the most part. So, and then DJ Moore for Jeudy in a 4th. Yeah, I mean, I'd take DJ Moore in that trade. So, and then there's added value to DJ Moore since you get to stack him with Baker. So, yeah, I love that trade. I would absolutely do that if I was you. Joe says, what's your take on when to take a second quarterback in a 10-man SuperFlex, and when would you take Zach Wilson? In my home league, I can see him dropping past round 6. So I think it kind of depends on what you want to do, Joe. Like, kind of what's the roster build that you want to go for. Because I talk about quarterback extreme all the time, and I think it still works in a 10-team league. Because you think about it, if every team in the league ends up with 3 quarterbacks, there's going to be 2 left on waivers. And it's probably going to be like, the Geno Smith, Drew Lock combo is going to be on waivers. And then, maybe Baker Mayfield or maybe Davis Mills. Somebody like that is going to be on waivers. And there's kind of no reason to go pick those guys up necessarily. There's no real advantage to it. So you're not really driving the scarcity. Waivers aren't really driving the scarcity. You can drive the scarcity still in a 10-team league. So that's where quarterback extreme, which is 5 quarterbacks, 5 starting quarterbacks, is still a roster build that I would pursue in a 10-team league. Anything smaller than 10 teams, I get away from it because the math just doesn't add up to where you can drive the market anymore. There's just going to be too many options available on waivers. But in a 10-team league, you could still do it. I think that a lot of people are probably less likely to do it in a 10-team league than a 12-team or 14-team, which is totally fine. It's understandable. If that's not the build you want to go for, then that's totally fine. I think that in that format, if you're going for the traditional 3 quarterbacks, I think you can probably, especially especially if you end up with one of those absolute studs, set it and forget it type of guy like Mahomes, Allen, Herbert. If you've got that guy at quarterback 1, it lets you wait quite a bit longer for the second quarterback. And then what you probably want to do from there is wait until, I don't know, fourth round, 5th round, something like that. And then go back-to-back quarterbacks. Get Zach Wilson and get, Kirk Cousins. Or, somebody who's fairly safe, and then go get your Zach Wilson so that you've got that breakout potential. And I call it good at quarterback. So you're kind of balancing the floor and the ceiling at quarterback 2 at the SuperFlex position. If Zach Wilson breaks out, he's your guy. And then all of a sudden, the backup doesn't matter too much. If he doesn't break out, well, at least you've got a safe floor with that, Cousins, Tannehill, whoever it is, Derek Carr. You've got a nice safe floor to kind of complement that quarterback 1. So, yeah, it's actually a pretty layered question. The more I talked, the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, there's kind of a lot of different ways to approach that. And I don't think that there's a right or wrong answer, but it kind of depends for me on the roster build, who's your quarterback 1. If you waited until the second round to take your quarterback 1, you got Jalen Hurts. I think you have to attack it a little bit sooner, just to make sure that you've got some insurance in case Jalen Hurts isn't able to keep his job. So, yeah, it depends on the roster build. It depends on your quarterback 1. But I think just based on ADP, I think that generally speaking, you can probably plan on waiting till around the 4th, 5th round, something like that. Maybe even a little longer in a 10-team. Yeah, I'd say 5th or 6th round is probably just kind of, as a generality, probably where you want to look for your second quarterback. Mr. RJ Card says, where do you take Julio Jones right now? What round? Green Bay possibly for Julio. Yeah, he's like kind of a very end of the, in a 22-team startup, I'm probably looking at him around the 20th round. Like it feels like if he ends up in Green Bay, that should be the best case scenario for him. Although I would actually rather see him in Indianapolis. But and I think they could probably use him. That might be the one that really pushes him up for me. If he were to land in Indianapolis, then that would push him up. Otherwise, even if he lands in a good spot, at least on paper, it's still it's they obviously didn't prioritize him or they would have signed him sooner. And we see it all the time. I just think about Andre Johnson going to the Colts and how great we thought that was going to be. What a great fit that was supposed to be with Andrew Luck, and it was just like nothing. We got nothing out of him, So I think, I just don't think that 36-ish year olds. How old is he? Is he 36? I think he might be 36. Wide receiver is going to really find much of a role, a role of very much substance. I think I would rather take a shot with guys like Donovan Peoples-Jones and, I said Jacoby Myers, Kendrick Bourne is another guy. I'd rather take shots with guys like that. On Green Bay, I'd rather take a shot with Amari Rodgers than Julio Jones. Whatever you get from Julio Jones is like it's kind of a one-year proposition with a very, very low ceiling and really not much of a floor either. So whereas Amari Rodgers, it's like there's no floor there, but there's a potential for a breakout that could turn into a long-term proposition. So yeah, Julio just doesn't really even make it onto my radar, to be honest. It's just too much has to go right for him to have any value to me. Michael Thomas start the season in New Orleans. Yeah, I think so. That was Mr. RJ Cards asked that. Yeah. I'm curious what you guys think, but I mean, by now he should absolutely be healthy. Like he's had a full year to recover from that surgery. If he's not healthy yet, I don't think he's ever going to be. So, yeah. I think we can count on him to start the season. But Joe Aber also comes back and says, I think, tell me if I said that right. I know that you get this on pretty much every DLF show, Joe, but let me know if I got the last name right or wrong. But says, I think Michael Thomas is done as an elite player. That's very possible as well. Like both can be true. He can start the season, but play like garbage. that's absolutely possible. Raul says, got to chime out. Good stuff as always, John. Cheers. Thanks, Raul. Good to see you, my man. Mr. RJ Card says, press out of New England is if Ramondre looks good. Will he take over as New England number one back? I kind of think so. Yeah. I'm not sure what that's worth though, necessarily. Like it's still going to be a 1A, 1B type of thing. It's just like Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson just kind of switch roles, but it's like one gets a little bit more work each game than the other, It's still close to a 50-50 split. It's like 52-48, essentially. Let's see. I wouldn't play either if Hill was my quarterback. Oh, yeah, Michael Thomas. Okay, yeah, if Taysom Hill was the quarterback. Yep, can agree with that. But Crab Legs can still sling it, he says, which is absolutely true. Yeah. Let's see. Mr. RJ Card says SuperFlex dependent on who was drafted. Got to go with two quarterbacks out of top 3 picks. If the top second tier available, starting with 60 points between the two. Yeah, absolutely agree. Nothing to add. Mark Wilson says Rashad Bateman or Treylon Burks. Half PPR, SuperFlex Dynasty. Half PPR changes things a little bit for me. Typically, in full PPR, I'd probably take Bateman. I think he's going to get more volume. But we're looking a little bit more for a balance between volume and touchdown upside. And I think that's Treylon Burks. I think he's the more dynamic playmaker with the ball in his hands. So let's go with Burks. Just barely. And there were some guys here earlier who absolutely disagreed with that. I might have chased one of them off though with something else that he disagreed with, but if I remember right. But yeah, there was some Burks hate earlier, but I'll take Burks over Bateman. FF Lefty says, "What's up, Lefty? Finally have a nice quarterback room in this 12-team startup I just did. Lamar Jackson, Mac Jones, Kirk Cousins, Ryan Tannehill, and Tyler Huntley. Dang. Yeah, that's a good group. Lamar, Mac, Cousins, and Tannehill are starters right now. And Huntley's a nice lotto ticket later." Lefty says, "Probably not as much as you do, but this is progress." Not as much as I would do, but it's damn close, man. Yeah, this is a very similar build to what I would end up with. I would have one other quarterback, but it's not going to be somebody who's, necessary one other starting quarterback. But I mean, it's probably going to be somebody like Davis Mills or Baker Mayfield. So that's all you're missing out on is like just that one guy who has the potential to start for me at Superflex in, just the absolute best case scenario for him, best matchup possible, essentially. So you're not far off. Joe says, "I do pronounce my last name like former Saints quarterback Bobby Hebert, even though I am not Cajun." Okay, so we got it right. So I assume no relation then to Bobby Hebert. That's he just his entire purpose was just so that we would hear, 30 years later we would get your name right. so yeah. That's why he had an NFL career, so that we could get this right. Man, that's it. That we got through all the questions. We got through all the comments. We only pissed off one guy somehow. I mean, one guy expressed his disappointment with my analysis. So there very well could have been more. And then especially the more people listen, this will also go out on the SuperFlex Super Show as a podcast. So plenty of opportunities to piss off some more people, but only one of them got to actually express it. So yeah, I mean, you guys still have a chance. You can still say it if you want to say it. We got another quick one here from Mr. RJ Cards. Why is Javonte Williams ranked as a top 8 back? Denver doing a 1 running back season. No, I think it's age. Gordon showed flashes. Yeah, I mean, I think it's age at a time when there aren't a lot of young, high upside running backs available. We talked about Javonte earlier in the show before you got here, RJ, just talking about how, that entire offense is just going to be significantly more run friendly. So, more extended drives, more trips into the red zone, more goal line carries, more positive game scripts for the running game. So it's kind of like, even if they do have a similar split to last year, although I think Javonte Williams probably gets more work than Melvin Gordon this time around. I think he's the lead back and Gordon is the change of pace and the just kind of the backup. But either way, there's going to be more and better touches available to both of those guys. So top 8 is probably a little aggressive. I'm with you there, but I think that it's, I think top 15 should be pretty doable for him. Even with Gordon there. And I think top 8 is doable, but that's probably his ceiling at the moment. But that's still pretty damn good. And the fact that we know that we're getting that for several years, where most of our running backs we're probably we're getting 1 year and hoping for a second. So I think that's probably why, to answer your question. but I don't disagree. Okay. Joe Pantorno says, how do you tank Chase Burrow, Kyler, Superflex, PPR? Oh, how do you rank Chase Burrow, Kyler, Superflex, PPR 10-man? I'm most likely going Kyler with the 7th pick. Yeah, I've got it. I want to say I've got it ranked Burrow, Kyler. But those guys are in the same tier. So take your favorite quarterback. Jamar Chase is a couple tiers below those guys for me. I mean, obviously, he's wide receiver 2, back to back with Justin Jefferson. He's in a tier with all the top running backs and several of the top quarterbacks, but quarterback is just so important that I've got those young elite quarterbacks ranked higher. So yeah, I'll go Kyler over Burrow. I don't remember if I have it ranked that way, but I think that's how I'm gonna put it out there publicly, and then have to go change my rankings if I find out that that's not how I had it. Memo says, where do you see Matthew Stafford this year? About the same production as last year. Yeah, I mean, probably a little bit of regression, negative regression. You lose Robert Woods. Allen Robinson is overall an upgrade over Robert Woods, better player, but now he's got to learn a new system, new quarterback. I don't think defenses are going to let Cooper Kupp beat them the way they did before. And above all else, we know that McVay wants to run the ball and always has. He's got a healthy Cam Akers. I think they're going to rely on him a little bit more. So, yeah, I think he's going to be. I think Stafford is going to be fine. I don't think it's going to be massive regression, but I think you're going to see just a little bit of regression. Mr. RJ Card says top 15 puts Williams at late second round. He's going early second rounds. Yeah. I guess that's in one quarterback. Superflex, it's going to be more like 4th round. But yeah, I mean, I think that feels like a little bit better range, at least to me, for Javonte Williams. And then it says Allen Robinson or Van Jefferson, who's the 2. It should be Allen Robinson pretty easily. He just has more ways to win. Van Jefferson is a little bit of a it feels like a negative connotation to say he's a more of a gadget player, but he's more of a get the ball in his hands in opens, in the open field. Where Allen Robinson he can win deep down the field. He can go, he can win with his route running. I think he's going to get Stafford's attention more than Van Jefferson will. Over under 80 receptions, 800 yards, 5 touchdowns for Justin Gage in Tampa Bay puts him mid-late round 2. I'm taking the under. I think it's a pretty small window for him with Chris Godwin out, and honestly, that might not be it might not end up being a window at all. But whatever he does, he's got to get it done before Chris Godwin comes back. Josh Schemmel says, do you ever recommend drafting both a quarterback and tight end in the first 6-7 rounds in redraft? In a one quarterback league, probably not. And if I did, it would be round 6 and 7, and it would have to be some pretty significant value falling to that point. I think it would have to be like if we saw Mark Andrews fall to the 6th round, I would advocate for that. If we saw, Lamar Jackson, or, guys above him, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Pat Mahomes fall to the 7th round, then I would do it. So kind of value-based drafting, there's a scenario there, but generally speaking, in that type of format, nah, probably not. I'm primarily focusing on running backs while they're still there. Joe Abear says Akers is not healthy. Running backs don't come all the way back from an Achilles. Yeah, that's still a concern, definitely. Fully with you there. He looked fine when he came back fast. So I think that there's a possibility that he's an outlier here, but I think that we still want to approach those Achilles injuries the same way going forward. So like James Robinson, for instance, Achilles injury. I'm not expecting him to follow the same timeline as Cam Akers. And I'm more inclined to think that his career path going forward probably looks more like somebody like Donta Foreman, where the Achilles injury was just kind of that was it for him being, kind of a lead back type of guy, an elite level type of guy. He was never elite, but, we thought that he could be, and then the Achilles injury just kind of wiped that out. I think that more often than most of the time, that's what you're going to see. It just feels like Cam Akers is a little bit different thing, since he already did come back and, probably wasn't 100%, but was awfully damn close late in the season. So, Mr. RJ Card says, what's a better value this year, Adams or Renfro? And says, will Thielen catch 10 touchdowns this year? Thielen probably not quite. And I still think Adams is a better value than Renfro, even though you get Renfro super cheap. I think that you get a lot more production out of Davante Adams, and depending on the format, you're probably getting him in the 2nd to the 4th or 5th round. SuperFlex leagues, SuperFlex Dynasty leagues, you're probably getting him in like the 4th or 5th round. So yeah, I still think he's the value. All right, now we made it all the way through. Thank you all for the questions. Thank you for joining me on this SuperFlex Super Friday Monday night. SuperFlex Super Friday night on Monday night. Yeah, there you go. Thank you all for joining me, but let's wrap it up there for the week. Subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. Subscribe to the DLF family of podcasts mega feed. Do us a huge favor and rate and review the SuperFlex Super Show. And then as far as this live feed, if you would give me a like, hit that like button, that helps a lot. Helps us to get out to more people and touch on more topics that are useful to you, our super friends. This episode was dedicated in loving memory to James the Brain Catullus. Thank you to DLF for the platform. Thank you to Heart and Soul Radio for the music. And above all else, thank you for listening. And until next week, until the next SuperFlex Super Friday, stay sexy and super flexy.